What's up, GIGA gamers? Welcome to the Strat Chat. Today we're going to galvanize your mind. We're going to do a review of the review. We're going to go over a hand review from Daniel Negreanu's Masterclass in Poker. We're going to figure out how we're going to bust ace kings and early position under the gun raises. Let's check it out. Alright, so here's the hand.
Poker skills on show at EPT London in 2010, with seasoned pro and table entertainer Daniel Kid Poker Negreanu up against the comparatively unknown Angel Shlomi.
Oh, that's true, yeah. 10 today and then 8 tomorrow.
Dario's going to be in the big blind here.
I will say that D-Negs references that people that come dressed up all in dark clothes or wearing sunglasses or hats, they tend to want to disguise their fear. And so it's a little bit easier to bully players like this. And I wonder if it came to play in this situation.
Angel Shlomi raising under the gun with kings.
Shlomi has a big one, and he's not playing.
So the
around.
blinds were 100, 200,
Big blind.
and 475. So an over bet.
Will call.
That's a large raise.
Negreanu on the button has
Bunyadi calling with sixes from the cutoff. Actually, it looks like he's in the hijack. You're not getting good odds here on the sixes. It's probably a little bit of a mistake, but with four players behind you, half the players are behind you. When you limp in, sometimes you can expect someone else to limp in as well. So he's hoping to gain. He's kind of floating his odds, saying if a third player gets into this hand and I do hit my six, then there's a good chance that I get a good payday.
10-9 of diamonds.
Negreanu's loving life right now on the button with this hand.
On the button, that's the important part right here. And we know Negreanu loves hands like these.
He's really thinking about it. He's confused with this 5x open out of Shlomi.
Although I will say that this is 2010. This is still in the days of kid poker before Negreanu's all over the place winning everything. So this is early enough where maybe he doesn't have that reputation and as much TV time as he has had so far.
But he makes the call. Both blinds will fold.
Now, in this situation, there is a very slim chance against a player who is balancing their hand range that Negreanu could have pocket aces. Let's say it's 5% or less. I would bring it down to 1% or less, completely negligible, should not be in your range because there's a third player. If there were not a third player, you might want to get your aces in some amount of the time, just for the call value, because you're probably dominating all the hands that you've called. Because there's a third player, you can't expect Negreanu to ever just call aces, because with a third player in the hand, there's too many flops that could make hands for other players that have incredible implied odds that could end up taking your entire stack. All right, so here we go. We're going to go to the flop. There's three players. The implied odds of your suited connectors are very important here, right? With three players, if you hit, you have a good chance of taking a lot of money from multiple players. So that's where suited connectors become very good, especially in late position. You can represent a lot of hands. Let's see how it plays out.
The three players will see a flop. No six for Bunyadi, but a 9.
Now, if Negreanu's really paying attention, it didn't look like Shlomi cared about what came out, which if you're trying to get a read on a player, if they look like they don't care, that means that they've already got their made hand, right? As the cards come out. Most people are going to go and show an interest. They want to see if their hand got better. In this case, it looks like he's fairly confident that he's got the best hand. Why? Because most players, if they have aces, they're going to repop, right? They're going to get it all in early, especially to try to get a third player out. So Shlomi can go into this situation knowing that neither of these other players have aces. He's very confident that he's got the best hand, and that's why he said nonchalant, like, don't care what comes out. Maybe this is just what he does anyways, but it's worth noting.
High flop could get Daniel in trouble here.
Daniel looked a big speculative pre-flop, and now he's picked up top pair.
All right, so yes, he's picked up top pair, but this is the key about playing suited connectors. Once you decide to play suited connectors, you can play them all. You can play any wet board, and in this case, when you've got the 9-5-4, if you continue to play this hand, you can tell the table that you are either playing 6-7, that you're either playing 2 spades, that you played 4-5 suited and you hit there, or that you hit pocket 9s, pocket 5s, pocket 4s. So there's a lot of hands that you can represent, especially being in position with a hand like this. Much harder to bet and open from drawing positions if you are early position, right? So that's a big key here, is that Negreanu's on the button, doesn't need to lead any information, and suited connectors become that much stronger on the button in position.
He might get in trouble.
Shlomi continues. He's made it 15-25. It's a pot-sized bet.
No slow playing for Shlomi. 5x pre-flop, pot on the flop.
All right, so the reason you're betting pot is because whoever calls you is going to get 2-1 odds, right? The chances of hitting your hands are lower than that generally. Now, if you're playing with overs and flush draws and straight draws, you have something like 15 outs in the deck to improve your hand, then you're looking at situations where there's a lot of cards that can get you better. And in fact, you're even going to be slightly favored with 2 cards to come. The over cards may not matter, especially in this situation, since you're putting your opponent on aces or kings. But just to get an idea of where you're at, if 10 jack suited were to play here against aces, they would be 52-48 favorites.
Daniel's still not convinced. He wants to call.
But should he call?
Daniel has a tough time folding pairs, and this is top pair. He should probably fold, but I don't see.
Now, when we talk about top pair, yes, it's worse. We know it's worse than kings. We also know it would be worse than aces. But like we said, 16 out of the 28 hands that Shlomi's representing are actually ace kings. So the majority of the hands that Shlomi could have, 4 out of 7, are actually hands that he beats. So while this is a little bit of a float for later, and it might be a little bit loose, actually 60% of the time, he's totally fine. There's no equity in raising this situation because at that point, only the aces or the kings are going to call you. So by calling, you're also giving the opponent a chance to hang themselves if they're only on ace or king. Now, we did talk about the type of cards that Negreanu could be playing. All of those spade hands get reduced by the fact that Shlomi has a king of spades in his hand. He knows that hitting a spade draw is that much less likely. It also takes a lot of those hands out of Negreanu's range. So while it can't be king 9 suited because of the spade on the board, it could be king 10, king jack, king queen, king ace. Four combinations are out of the opening range of Negreanu because of that king of spades. So now we're looking at the rest of the hands he could have besides the 6-7. You wouldn't be getting good odds to call with 7-8. If you're playing with overs, and we're talking about 10 jack, 10 queen, jack queen, 10 ace, jack ace, queen ace of spades, we're starting to limit the number of hands that someone might want to call us with.
Shlomi's kings.
Shlomi can't be too concerned about this turn card.
21-25.
This time he decides to make it a little bit cheaper for Negreanu. He went full pot on the flop, right around half pot on the turn.
So you do half pot on the turn because you want to give them that 4-1 odds now to hang themselves, right? That last card, draws aren't coming at 4-1. You're very rarely getting that many outs in the deck. In the case of an up and down straight and spades draw, right, you're looking at 17 outs. You actually have to be careful. I would have bet slightly more if I were Shlomi here to pull them off of the rest of those draws, but half pot is going to get rid of just the straight or just the spade draw.
Surely this is where Daniel lets it go.
Daniel is trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And he makes...
All right, so the call here, again, they know that you're on a monster range. You could just be betting and bluffing ace-king in this situation, but the call here, now we're putting him almost definitely on 9s, 5s, 4s, 6-7 of spades, 7-8 of spades is looser, 8-10, 10 jack, 10 queen, jack queen, 10 ace, jack ace, queen ace of spades. When we look at the total number of hands that Negreanu is representing in this situation, Shlomi's still in really good shape, except against those trips.
It's a call. He's not entirely convinced yet. Again, this river really doesn't change much. The only hand this helps is 6, 7, or 8, 9. And Shlomi only fires out a third pot on this river. He gives Negreanu a fair price to make this call. He's getting 4 to 1 on his money.
Well, let's see if Daniel can get away from this.
All right, so the pot was 9,000. Shlomi bet 3,000, and
Aces or kings? Can I say that, or is that illegal? Heads up. I can say what he has, but not what I have. Okay. I'm thinking aces or kings.
there's the masterclass
Daniel
right
really
there.
pulled the trigger correctly on that one.
Shlomi's like, yep, you got me.
And Shlomi's now thinking, if you've read me for aces or kings, surely you can beat aces or kings. I have to fold.
If I show one, do I have to show all?
The rest doesn't really matter. But Shlomi's saying, all right, I guess he's got me beat if he's got me red. The table talk, I think, was what put the nail in the coffin, but we're going to go back and look at this from Shlomi's point of view and see if we can dissect this play and try to find holes and really get into it. Here we go with Daniel's analysis. Shlomi's large raise size indicates that he has a premium hand. Now, this is probably based on table image and how these players are interacting at the table that Daniel's able to put him on this. If it's not a premium hand, then it's probably a bluff, and in most cases, the strategies are going to work similarly, but let's see what we get. Daniel uses this information by calling in position with a speculative hand and understanding that he may be able to bluff Shlomi off what is likely a one-pair hand on later streets. That's because you're more likely to miss flops than you are to hit flops. When you're playing 10-9 suited, you can really play all the suited connector hands, right? Any flop that comes out, you can represent those hands. So what Negreanu is banking on is that in position, there are more flops that favor his range, especially if he's got this image of playing lots of suited connectors at the table, suited gappers. Really, any 2 or 3 cards that make any wet board should be good for Negreanu's range. On the flop, although Daniel has top pair, he's only beating ace-king out of Shlomi's perceived range. The flop texture is key to calling the continuation bet because Daniel can now represent a lot of nutted hands on certain turn and river cards and bluff his opponent. This is because the board has a wet texture where many different draws can complete on the turn or river. So looking at the combinations of cards that Shlomi could have, of the ace-king combinations, right, you have 6 pairs of aces, ace of spades with the other aces, ace of diamonds with the other aces, for example. You have 6 pairs of kings, and you have 16 combinations of ace-king, all right? Importantly, one of those 28 hands is ace-king of spades, and it should factor into your analysis that no bluffs and no made hands featuring spades are going to knock off ace of spades. So if you're putting them on these premium hands, you do have to keep that in mind, that 1 out of the 28 hands will have you completely and utterly dominated at all times. But Negreanu continues. Because also, if you look at the other hands, the aces and kings, 12 of them were pocket pairs. 16 of those combinations were ace-king. So actually more combinations of premium raise hands are going to represent ace-king, and he's got ace-king beat. So this call, completely reasonable from Daniel. He's playing top pair on a wet board. He's even beating ace-king 16 out of 28 times, right? So about 60% of the time, he's just winning anyways. The other times, maybe he's going to be able to bluff away the aces or kings. Daniel can credibly represent any of these hands because his pre-flop calling range contains all the combinations needed. It's also possible to make 2-pair or trips, and know that with Shlomi likely holding an overpair, more value than usual is on offer. This is, I think, the crux of the conversation. 4s and 5s, a little bit light to call, right? You need 7 to 1 to call on your pocket pairs. Now he's in position, so you can bring that down to 5 to 1, and there's already 2 players in the hand. So Daniel's getting decent decent representation of 4s and 5s. I'd say 9s is actually the most common hand that he would play in this situation like this, and we'll get to that later. But the important thing about 9s is with 1-9 already on the board, you have to think there's only actually 3 other combinations of 9s. On the turn, Daniel decides to call with what is likely the worst hand, using the same thought process as he did on the flop. So commonly, this under the gun raise knows aces and kings and ace-king. Most flops aren't going to hit your opponents. So he bets the 9-5-4, representing that he's already made his hand. But you can make that bet even if you have ace-king, right? You're continuing, and when the drawing hand bricks completely, which you have to assume the Queen of Hearts is a brick, based on these the types of hands that would continue with you from here, then there's a good chance that they fold. So you have a lot of fold equity representing that hand. And again, it can be on ace-king, but kings is a little bit better, and then ace is obviously much better. Shlomi's small bet size on the river indicates that his range is likely only pocket aces or kings, right? Because now he's value betting. He's saying, nothing came out of this board. I'm going to go ahead and bet a small amount, try to get you to call on your either missed a draw, or on, maybe you caught a piece of one of these and that's it. 8 of clubs also completes Daniel's straight draw. So he puts his original plan into action and turns his second pair into a bluff. This is the main place that I have an issue with this analysis. You have to go back and retell your story and make sure that everything makes sense. So once we say that we called the flop and we called the turn, on the flop, the only real hands that we're calling with are 2 spades, 6-7. You can't really play towards 10-jack because that's not wet enough for you. Although you could represent other hands, like we said, but the 10-jack is not really in the consideration of the under the gun raiser. You're looking basically at pocket 9s, pocket 5s to a lesser degree, pocket 4 to an even lesser degree, 6-7 suited. And that's basically it. Maybe sometimes some 5-4 suiteds as well. The issue with 5-4 suiteds is we've already taken care of the spades one is out, the clubs one is out. So if they played 5-4 suited, it would have had to been 5 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds, or 5 of hearts, 4 of hearts. All right, so there's only 2 combinations of 4-5 suited. There's only 3 pocket 9s, 3 pocket 5s, 3 pocket 4s, and then there's 4 combinations of 6-7 suited. So when we look at the total amount of hands that D-Negs is calling with, we really actually only add up to 15 hands. You might argue that also pocket 10s or pocket jacks would be willing to call. Probably would have re-raised once. But again, being in position means that a pair like that can call and play for showdown and play in position for the whole hand. So we might be willing to add 10s or jacks to this range, but I would say fairly confidently that when you're playing against this board, the types of hands that are calling you, again, 6-7 suited, of which spades is the only major threat, although you have an open-ended straight draw for the other ones. You have missed 4-5s that actually hit 2 pair, and you have pocket 9s, pocket 5s, pocket 4s. The large raise size is necessary because of how likely it is his opponent holds an overpair. So here's an issue. If I'm holding aces or kings, and my position kind of advertises that to my opponents, they wouldn't want necessarily to overbet, they want to value bet. That being said, if they can expect a call, maybe they start inflating that amount, but we'll get into that in a bit. Many players will call a small raise in this situation if they hold an overpair. So D-Negs is trying to re-raise for a pot-sized raise at the end, 12,000. And he's using that high value to make sure that the aces or kings don't call. Shlomi now understands that he can only beat a bluff. There are 2 straights possible, and The only likely bluff is a missed flush draw, but because he holds the king of spades in his hand, that drastically reduces the number of missed flush draw combinations. So a lot of your ace king suited, king queen suited, king jack suited, all the way down probably to king nine suited. Because Shlomi has the king of spades, that's 5 spade hands that you can take off the table. And since you're putting 4 or 5 spades really at the bottom of the range of suited connectors, and you maybe start playing suited gappers at like 6-8, when you start talking about the king of spades taking away 5 spade hands, you're really taking out a very big chunk of the spade draws. So that's where the number comes in here. Now here's the best part. Daniel uses table talk psychology to suggest to Shlomi that he might have pocket aces or kings. This ploy is designed to make him think that if Daniel knows what he has and he still raises, then his pocket kings must be beat. This is probably the most important part to me of this lesson. This was the kicker. This is what did it. I'm going to call your hand out while I raise, or I'm going to raise and then call your hand out. Well, heck. Well, that's going to make the player think twice about making any sort of call. But this is where you have to go into variable change. You have to think of it just like the game show host trying to get you to switch doors. The talking doesn't need to matter. It doesn't matter. You should just use math. Shlomi made a serious error with his pre-flop bet sizing, so that his opponents were able to narrow down his range. They did a great job giving you ranges for every position. This mistake, coupled with the pot size c-bet on the flop, made life for his opponents too easy when they knew almost for certain what he had. On the turn, Shlomi's small bet size indicates that he doesn't have pocket queens, and the pocket tens and jacks are now unlikely because it makes more sense to check the turn. This makes an expected range of only kings or aces extremely likely. You might say, oh, well, if you're Daniel Negreanu and you're sitting on trip nines, then you actually have to raise here to get Shlomi off of a hand like 6-7 of spades. The issue is that 6-7 of spades would have never bet 475 to enter. So that's where this is coming in. You're talking about image and like what it means to raise from different positions and why it's important to have a balanced range of openers, because if your opponent can put you on only the premium hands, then they can start playing against you and exploiting you. If you're opening with a wide range of things, including suited connectors, then yes, at this point, D-Negs would have to raise with his trips and basically end the hand right there. Now, if D-Negs is truly balanced, there's also a chance, a very small chance, but a slim chance that he is calling with just aces, right? We'll say maybe 1 out of 20 times or less, the Negreanu could just limp in with pocket aces. With a third player, I'm going to bring that chance down to 1, if not 0%. Very few times do you have to play against aces from this position. They would have tried to isolate. They would have tried to make the hand one-on-one, get another player out so that you have fewer chances of getting busted with a made flop. So when we're talking about all the combinations that D-Negs could have, 3 sets of 9, 3 sets of 5, 3 sets of 4. We also have to look at 5-4 of hearts, 5-4 of diamonds, and then the spades draws. 6-7, 6-8, 4-6, ace-10, ace-jack, ace-queen. The ace spades are willing to get in there because if a spade does come, you do want to make sure that you are getting the nutted spade draw, and the aces will protect against that to make sure that you're actually winning those hands, not just playing against, for example, ace-king of spades. So in total, you have 8 hands that are suited, 9 hands that are sets. 9,000 to get 21,000 means that 100% Shlomi should have called based on the information on this table. By using math, Shlomi actually could have won this hand. It was the table talk that was the nail in the coffin. I will admit it. It's 100% what did it as far as what he was afraid of. And then the fact that D-Neg was able to take what Shlomi was afraid of and made it a reality. He'd made his monsters come to life. But if you just use math, if you just use it, by using the same things that we talked about in this book, it is actually probably a mistake to not call the bets by D-Negs. They make sense. There's a couple stories, but you have to be careful going back and trying to tell the story as if the 8 had hit your hand, because of the hands that beat you, right? We're only talking about the 6-7 and the sets, right? So 10 out of the 17. Shlomi's getting much better than those odds to make this call at the end. Now, should he ever re-raise? No, because if you re-raise, then you're only going to get called by the hands that beat you. So we talked about 10 out of the 17 hands do beat you. Those 10 hands will call you if you raise. When you look at all the hands that he could be playing in this situation, realistically, you're still getting great odds from Shlomi's position to call here. You've got a made hand. Only a percentage of the time does Negreanu hold the hand that beats you, and you're getting fantastic odds. 9,000 to win 21,000. So 3 to 7 is fantastic for playing this hand. Really, you could put Negreanu on 60% of hands that beat you, and you'd still want to call. So this is where you can take that math to bring your game to the next level. I'm super appreciative of this entire course. It's been fantastic. I've learned so much. To be able to go through this hand played at that level by arguably the best poker player, or definitely one of the best poker players, is incredible. It was so cool to go through this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think that we missed a hand? Is there something that could come in? Where was the price right? How would you have played it? Let me know. I'll catch you guys next time. Keep it surreal. Peace.